job. We're
Then why did he stop coming?
I guess we're not. Tonight, we're gonna be present and grounded.
Manifesting.
Stay healthy.
You do yoga?
I do. I did it today. I have 4 children.
Yeah.
Yes. There's no way to be this sad. All right, it is 6:30. So I'm gonna call the meeting to order, roll call. You can state your names, board members.
Carla Pennington Cross.
That one.
Daniel Bailey and Andrew Franklin is not here yet. Okay, you may stand for the pledge.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Carla, do you want to repeat our non-negotiable, just find out those?
Oh, Andy Franklin.
Andrew Franklin present.
Our headlines and our district equity non-negotiables are, we accept each other. We are responsible to each other. We teach each other. We listen to each other. We grow with each other.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
All in favor, voice vote?
Aye.
Any visitor participation? Katie has already burst my bubble.
Come on, Katie.
I can probably find
All right, the consent agenda contains our September financials and the minutes of the special board meeting and cow meeting from September. Is that correct? August, I'm sorry, August, okay. So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, voice vote?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, moving on to new business. We have 2 resolutions that, one we passed last year and we're bringing back, and the other, I believe, is new for us. So there's the resolution in recognition of National Suicide Prevention Month. And there is a resolution proclaiming the celebration of National Hispanic Latinx Heritage Month, which is September 15th through October 15th. So is there a motion to approve these resolutions? So moved. Second. And then in terms of discussion, I did ask if, well, we could start with, I asked if Kelly and Jenica would be able to just sort of share with us anything happening in their schoolhouses around these or resources. The National Suicide Prevention Month is, of course, about checking in on people and sharing resources with families in our community. So it would be awesome if we could understand some of that and possibly share it on ourselves, right?
Sure. I can talk a little bit about suicide prevention. Here at Glen Hills, I will say we're kicking off, or we kicked off our wellness week this week, where every member of our student services team took a grade level and went in and presented like an overall mental health wellness lesson in each of our grade levels. So I think each person went into every 4th hour today. And part of that was to model for some of our classroom teachers, just some of the language we use, the strategies we use, because we know that going in and using a canned program like our universal curriculum is a good step, but we know that that feels kind of canned and it's not meant to be to cover all of the needs our teachers are facing in their classroom. And so, they did that today. And as a way to kind of build capacity for our teachers to feel comfortable in talking about things related to mental health, overall wellness and things like that. We haven't got feedback yet from teachers because that just happened today. Secondly, I'll say that we subscribe to something called Red Gen. You'll have to look that up online. One of our school counselors, Marion Gillen, went through the Red Gen training. And it offers essentially a curriculum, and the whole like reason Red Gen got started was for suicide prevention. And that is meant to be like another like capacity building tool, but within our student population. So building student leaders within the school as a means for building resiliency for all of the students. Kind of that community building and addressing some of that student to student relationship building. And again, focusing on resiliency. So those are some of the things, and I wouldn't say they're like focused on suicide this month, but really the idea is building mental illness, health, mental wellness, and addressing that throughout the year, right?
And Red Gen has a lot of opportunities for parent, I mean, they're pretty active in the community. They have a lot of activities that they offer for families and educational opportunities. Is it comparable to youth mental health first aid, the type of training programming?
I'm not sure if I know that I would be able to tell you if it was comparable or not. But I know I was nervous about subscribing to it, but at the same time, like I read through it. I actually think that we had like this was something that we had in our district previously and maybe just wasn't utilized to its full capacity. But I know Marion came back like super excited and really pumped up and really feeling like this is another way to just help our student population.
The last time I went to a Red Gen program, it was like they do like a suicide CPR or something, like what they used to call it. It's like a parent program. I admit I was a little troubled by it. It felt like a really pathologizing.
Coming from a pathologizing our.
Yeah, like
students
it talked a
instead
lot
of-
about mental illness and disease with suicide prevention, and so I hope they've modernized it and
Yeah.
moved past that deficit language.
I would hope
I'd
so
be
too.
curious to know what their material looks like now.
Yeah.
I might follow up with you
Yeah,
about that.
please
if
do.
that's okay.
I was gonna say it'd just be cool if, Karin, we could like advertise some of this on our social media, like this wellness week or, the Red Gen or any of those resources could be cool. And then it's something, we could like echo and share too.
Sure.
And build awareness.
Yeah,
right?
well, that's the goal.
100%.
Yeah, there's a,
Slash stigma.
the other organization we talked about at our last meeting is Hope for the Day. I read this one. It's okay not to be okay. And it's a Chicago-based organization and they do come into schools in the Illinois area. But they have a lot of good resources for students and families and for specifically for schoolhouses. So that's just another organization that's out there that's doing good work, definitely. Okay, Jenica, do you want to talk about Latinx?
Sure,
Hispanic
sure.
heritage? I'm sorry, did anybody else? Okay, cool.
Sure. So Glen Hills has been, the teaching staff has been working, since last year on curating, resources, not just for Heritage, Month and all different months, right? So we're looking at, Black History Month, we are looking at, Hispanic, Latinx, all different areas, Asian Pacific. I'm just kind of curating, different pages that staff have resources to go to kind of pull into their lessons and their morning meetings. Mr. Williams also is focusing on this as well during his morning meetings. And then we've done some curating of books as well for K through 6th grade. Next year we'll be adding for the middle school. So we've been adding diverse books. So we took a bunch of our funds to purchase classroom library books and they were diverse books. That was a big win.
And then at Parkway, the library also pulled out a collection of books, and then Dr. Smith also has a collection of books as well, for classroom teachers to check out and to read aloud to them in their classrooms. And then they'll be communicating some of this out during their newsletters with pictures of the kids doing different activities, both for Parkway and for Glen Hills. So then the parents will get some communication about that as well. But I agree with you, putting something up on the website,
Yeah,
just promoting, hey, everyone.
Yeah.
I think that would be a great thing, just to communication wise, marking down all the different events. It was also Deaf Awareness Week as well. It's last week, so one of our staff members created all different videos and shared out just different ways to say hello and all of that. So the whole staff kind of got involved with some of that, and they were able to utilize some of that in their morning meetings. And when it's in little chunks, it's something she wants to continue to share with staff, different things that they could be utilizing in their classrooms with all students.
is that Miss Jax?
Mhm.
So she shared that with us last year too. That'd be cool to like bring her in and just highlight,
Yeah.
recognize her for that work. Cause that's
Just for,
something she's doing.
there's a lot
like,
going
above
on,
and beyond.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, very cool. Anybody have any comments, questions?
On the Latinx resolution, I
Yes.
proposed some edits, so that's what's in front of you.
Yeah.
They're non-substantive, but before we vote,
Yeah.
I don't know.
So so
Just to tighten it up and take out, and to bold the whereas's comments.
So I think you would need a friendly amendment to, a motion to approve the Latinx Hispanic.
Focuses it to, this is just the language
Right.
that I'm proposing to be changed to. This is the best we could pull off because I didn't hear the original resolution.
So who made the motion in the second?
You want a motion to,
No, Carly, you made the motion already?
I made the motion.
So
Oh,
we
you did
should
make the
amend
motion,
it,
sorry.
right? To, if
I'll
you wanna
second
use,
that.
okay.
Wait,
So you made the motion to accept, I think I seconded it.
Okay,
I will make a proposal to amend,
okay,
to accept the
the
modified
edited,
language.
okay.
and I plainly accept that.
that, and I'm sorry.
And then I plainly
Okay, we
finally
get it.
accept the.
I will make it
I always. Yeah.
You're supposed to be tracking the motions too.
It's Frankenstein.
Okay. Thanks for bearing with us on that. Okay, so there is a motion. If there is no more discussion, we could do a voice vote. All in favor of passing the resolution and recognition of National Suicide Prevention Month, as well as the school district proclaiming the celebration of National Hispanic Latinx Heritage Month, with the caveat that we will use Carla's edited version. Voice vote, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? They pass. Thank you for sharing that with us, and then we can follow up, make sure we're sharing our resources. Now on to approval of gifts. You wanna just, Lindsay, highlight these? for us?
So, the district has partnered, with the organization called Continuing Advancement that, specializes in grant writing. And, so it's a multitude of grants we're trying to apply for anything and everything that we can, just working with them to, utilize our data and see what's out there to help, with funding. And we did receive 2 grants. One of them was through We Energy Foundation for our, outdoor classroom space in the amount of $5,000, and then one from the Wisconsin Art Sports Creative Community Program for our Black History Month program for $6,000. So we were really excited, and both of our staff members that will be utilizing them are excited about what we can do with it. And Mr. Torrance purchased some drums to go towards the Black History Month program.
Who were the teachers who did the work on the grant tasks?
So it's not the teachers, I work with
Oh,
the
you
company.
do
that
it.
does
I see.
Advancement, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Symphony.
So you're just out there hunting the grants. That's awesome, Lindsay. Thank you for that work.
Yes.
Can I ask a question before the motion is in point of order? I have no intention of not accepting this, however we do it, but it was listed, and I thought about this this morning as I was looking through the agenda. These were listed as gifts, but they were grants. And so don't we have a separate grant policy regarding the application and then acceptance of
Here,
grants?
Let's do a quick That, well,
That's all I'm trying,
it's not a donation, right? It's not.
Grant.
a-
It's
It
a
was an
grant.
application response.
I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, are they gifts, does it really matter what we're doing today? Because either way, I mean, I don't wanna take the money, but, I just wanna make sure that we're doing it proper, procedure.
The policies aren't on board doc right now.
Have we done that updated?
I mean, Madam President, if you're fine with how we're doing this, then that's not for me. That, yeah.
Are you gonna vote to impeach? I
No.
I can't
That's
find
nice.
our. Not tonight. I would have policy, but it would be under, no, this, I have it on my computer. It would be under, what would you think that? Gifts and donations.
Is it under governance and operations?
Just give me two minutes, and I'm just gonna see if I can find it. It's not, if we're not in. The worst that could happen is we would revisit it and accept it.
And I guess, you know, the reason, I guess, is, in my mind, and, I mean, if I need to make a motion, I can
Gifts,
make.
donations.
But if
gifts,
it's a grant, I mean, are there requirements that we follow, on how we use the money?
So for some of the grants that we've applied for, yes, they have to be used for specific things, like it can only be used for instructional materials or it can be used for professional development. And that's outlined in the grants when we apply for them. And so when we receive the award, I have that laid out. So for example, the Black History Program, like it could be used toward the instruments. And then if we wanted to bring in somebody as a guest speaker for the program. So there's different pieces that depending on the grant that we would have to follow.
So there are guidelines, but there's nothing else that we're required to do, no counting, no nothing else.
No, it's not like our federal grants that we have for
Right.
WISE grants or for IDA or anything like that. We don't have to file a claim or anything like that. They're essentially giving us the grant funds. and then-
So functionally, it's treated the same as a gift.
Oh, it's a
Then-
donation.
That satisfies me and, I'll make the
Is that
motion.
good? Okay.
I don't see a policy on grants.
We just have one on gifts and donations. We may not, this may actually just be superfluous. We may not have to approve it.
Yeah.
But we'll dive into that for the next time, since you're gonna get a lot more, I bet. I would love to see them. I was curious, if any of the grant for like the Black History Month program might be used to provide like stipends for the teachers and the leaders of the program.
Unfortunately not.
Okay.
Yeah. There are some, like there's one right now that we've recently applied for to help with stipend for after school program.
Okay.
And if we offer different activities, so that's one that we're really hoping to get. We
Okay.
applied for it last year and didn't. So it depends, like some of the bigger organizations, they want to do that because it promotes like the after school activities. But a lot of times it's what's gonna impact the students directly.
And then who is making like the decisions of how that money gets spent for the Black History Month program and the green outdoor space one?
So it, for example, Ms. Clark and then Mr. Torrance, because he's kind of been the leader with the Black History program, and then they work with Ms. Young to just figure out what works best in the buildings and the spaces, and then they let me know. I give them the parameters and then say this is what you have.
Okay, it's like a team, sounds like a team effort. Cool, well, I wanted to pull those out because of a consent agenda, because I think it's just a nice thing to recognize that you've got these grants and that our school is doing these really cool things that attracted the grants in the first place, and I think we should just be shouting that to the rooftops, so. Is it?
Yeah, can I ask what you guys did in prior years when grants were coming in? Did you guys vote on them?
I don't remember.
No, I don't recall any grants
Yeah.
that I before I spoke for. Right, so I hear what you're saying, that this might be a superfluous,
Right,
approval, right?
which would not harm.
Yeah, I know, I don't
It's a
remember.
donation, it's a monetary donation. It's Andy,
Get
you
it.
made a motion to approve the
Yeah,
gifts
Yeah.
/ donations.
Yeah.
A second,
please,
anyone
let me
second?
make that motion.
You may.
I second.
Okay. All in favor, voice vote, aye?
Alright,
Aye. Any opposed? All right, good work, Lindsay and team. Jonica and Kelly, you are up with the professional learning and action plan update.
I just wanted to make a
Oh,
note that for both presentations, the presentations are in board docs under administrative content.
Yes, we figured about that later. No, that's fine, that's good, okay. Take it away.
Okay, so we're gonna do kind of a three-part thing here. So we have
Okay.
the action plan that we're gonna be walking through. And we're gonna pull two pieces out of this action plan to dig a little deeper in. One of them is gonna really be focusing on the district goals, the what, the why, and the how of the district goals. And then also Kelly will be doing some presenting around what feedback we got from the first few weeks of professional learning for our staff in August. So we'll start walking you through this. This document, we've seen before, so we're gonna just keep bringing this back up, and just continuing to grow on it. So you can kind of see, I'm gonna scroll through. There's, a little highlighted area here, 814 through 818. So we're gonna go back to this. We were unable, we didn't have that board meeting in August, so I'm just gonna scoot back a little bit. But we did have new teacher week. Some of you were able to attend, the lunch, which was wonderful. During that new teacher week, we had 4 days with our, new staff. We ended up, doing a meet and greet with the staff. We, worked through technology, Google Suite with them, IC training, email training, website training. They had time to meet with their mentors, so everyone was assigned a mentor within the district. So they had a half day with mentors. We also did some Infinite Campus training, so we had representatives from IC come out and do training with our special education staff and our general ed staff as well. Then we also did some equity training and some bus tours. That's the second or the third day, we did the partner day. So all of the partner districts got together with all the new staff and did some work in the morning. And then the afternoon was with the CAGC, which had different sessions around different equity topics that teachers could select. And then we had a wonderful lunch in Clutch Park, doing some team building. And everyone had a wonderful time. The food trucks were there on time, so it was really great.
I got the first one.
Yes.
Lucky one.
That was first. Then the last day was differentiated PD, so based on your role within the district, we fine-tuned professional learning around what area you were working in. So the art teacher had the other art teacher worked with her. We also had some middle school math training happening, some alternative standard work. I'm not gonna get into all the details, but everyone had what they needed for that week.
The next update after, we talk about that new teacher week is the para PD plan. And I don't know why there's a Glen Hill welcome link in there. I don't know how that happened. But if you look at the link below, you'll see the communication for our paraprofessional PD. This was an area we heard through some of our surveys that staff were really hoping for more dedicated professional development for our paraprofessionals. And so this is our go at creating some differentiated type PD, really focused on our paraprofessionals. And you'll see linked in here is kind of the schedule. And I tried to lay it out as clearly as possible, even though it looks super complex, it's really not. So essentially every professional development day, our paraprofessionals are here until 10:30. And they'll spend time in a dedicated session for paraprofessionals, and then they have time on every PD day dedicated toward collaboration with their lead special education teacher. And that really came from the ask for more time to collaborate with their paraprofessionals. Oftentimes they're entering the school when the bell's ringing and leaving when the bell's ringing, and we really need, they were really begging for more collaborative opportunities. So this is our goal at meeting that need, and the communication that went out to our special education teachers and paraprofessionals around that.
the next section, on 8.2 is we, ended up having our district launch, around RTI, PLC and the 100-day plan. So launching our district goals. And this is where I'm gonna pull, out a slideshow. You should have this in board docs as well.
August PD days.
On the school board meeting district launch. To be an attachment to the board docs. The full presentation that we did is in there, so it's probably, 50 plus slides, so you're getting the condensed version for the school board. Without all the activities and all that. So, we really wanted to focus, and provide clarity for staff around the what, the why, and the how. So we set some desired outcomes for the staff. We wanted, everyone to have a clear understanding of the district goals. We wanted everyone to walk away with an understanding of why these goals are important. The relevance of them, and then also clarity around how are we gonna address these goals for the 23-24 school year. We talked a lot about the 3 convergent truths. Talked through, and did some activities around how, all students must succeed in a K-12 system. Like, our students need to graduate, to be successful. The pandemic has really, impacted students, so I pulled a bunch of NAEP data and all of that, so we could see nationwide. COVID and the pandemic has really affected, academic data and also social and emotional for students. And then the academic skills and behaviors needed have never been higher. I'm thinking about where we're going as a nation and globally, and then the urgency, like we need to be on it right now. We can't wait any longer, so we need to get after it. And really being collective, the collective work of all of us. It's gonna take all of us to do this. It's gonna take the school board, our community, the teaching staff, administrators, students, everyone to move things forward. We also looked at some research as well. So we pulled the Hattie research out, and then not picking just one thing, but looking, across the board, what are some things that we could do in conjunction with each other in order to help support some positive outcomes. So we really focused in on collective teacher advocacy, teacher clarity, and RTI. Their areas of focus. And then with the staff, we went through where have we been, and then where are we going? Just to share that this really isn't a new thing. We're just building and refining what we've already started. So we did some work last year on teacher clarity, really focusing in on those learning targets. Again, learning targets, relevance, success criteria, really focusing in our practice around that. And at the end of the year, we were doing learning targets around SEL outcomes. And then this year, the big focus is really on those learning targets and collaborating as a teacher team. So instead of being in isolation doing some of this work, doing the collective work as a team, because we have the experts here in our buildings who can do the work. We don't need to have a bunch of people, coming in. We can do the work here. Structured focus and a structured focus on learning. So our conversations are on learning, whether it's learning how to be kind to a friend, or learn how to do addition problems. So it's not just the academic piece, it's just learning, all the learning that needs to happen. So our 2 goals that we came up with what is goal number 1, 100% of our students will show proficiency or above in the essential standards for literacy and math. And goal number 2, 100% of staff will share the belief that our collective actions positively impact student outcomes. Those were our 2 goals. For those before. How we arrived at them was all the SAIL work, looking at academic data, social emotional learning data, staff engagement surveys, student engagement surveys, the RTI PLC readiness surveys. We've also sent teams to the PLC conference, the RTI work conference. We met with different teacher teams as well to gather some additional information.
I just answered the question. And and then this is legitimately just a point of perhaps I'm misunderstanding, but do 100% of the students participating in curriculum in our district have the capacity to meet proficiency across all curriculum?
We're looking at ELA and we're looking at math and we're doing essential standards, so they're picking for the grade level, they're picking one or two standards that they're gonna focus on. Students who are on alternate standards would be utilizing something that aligns with
Sure.
with a standard, but it would be an alternate standard.
So the population of students you're thinking of are probably our students that are on alternate achievement standards that would, they have standards that would align to the standard, right, being addressed in the classroom. So
Sure.
it would be proficiency for that alternate achievement standard.
So, and again, I'm not trying to be difficult, but I'm just, so the theory then is that within this next year, students who are not in an alternate curriculum getting alternate standards will all have achieved to the extent that they would be proficient, even if they're identified with, for instance, a specific learning disability.
So given their accommodations, modifications, specially designed instruction, and to be super clear about the state, like the essential standards. It is literally, you've seen the Wisconsin state standards. The idea is, or the way we're framing it is yes, teachers can touch or have to touch all of those standards throughout the school year. But it is very difficult to look at a parent and say, I guarantee that all the students in the class are gonna master every single standard. It's just not possible. So we went through and selected the standards we said are essential for a student to find success the next year and the next year and for the rest of their life.
And I'll kind of go through that a little bit of why we decided essential standards to focus on that. So just that teachers don't have enough time in their day to meet all the demands placed on them as educators, right? Students don't have time in the school day to meet all the demands that are placed on them. And can we truly expect mastery of all the standards? So when we think about this, I kind of think of the stacks of books, right? The left-hand side, that big stack is all the standards. Like, you're not gonna go deep and have you're not gonna be able to speak to every single book. And so the middle stack is our priority standards. We have about 10 ELA and 10 math standards for each grade level. So this is what, during that curriculum review process with the partner districts, we've determined what are those 10 standards in ELA for that grade level must students have to be successful in the next grade level. So that's kind of the mid stack of books. And then that little stack there, like the 2 to 3 books, that is the essential standards. So in kindergarten, I like to say letter ID. Like, that's something that we want, all kindergartners to have letter ID. So that's something that they'll be teaching into for their essential standard. And that's their focus for the year. So that's what reteaching, intervention, all of that is, and that's all hands on deck. Like, we're gonna be working and be laser focused on that, because otherwise you might be pulling an intervention group, you're focusing on all different things, or we're trying to move students on STAR and it's all the standards, versus if we're really focused on that piece, we can do some really efficient work with that and move students. So that's where we're going.
So it's 2 or 3 standards per grade for each of the elements.
Yeah, and everyone knows what they are, everyone's focused on them, and we're all in on it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I have it in here, so I'll skip some of this. I kind of talked about it a little bit. So Wisconsin state standards, priority standards, this just kind of walks you through it a little bit. Essential standards. And then that goal 2, all of us moving in that same direction, having that clear understanding. Based off of some of the survey data, I believe everyone on my team is pulling in the same direction. You can kind of see that the responses were like 39 people agreed with that. So we really want to improve that. We want 100% of our staff knowing exactly where we're going as a district and as a building. And everyone's, going for the same goal.
What are those 2 circles, are those the different schools or? Wait,
One is
Am I
agree,
missing?
disagree, and one is.
Oh, it's working now.
So there's two different pie charts, like.
Oh. What's the two pie charts? What's
So
the,
So the first one was, answering the question, do you believe we're pulling in the same direction? The second one is, do you feel that's an important thing? Do you feel it's important that we should all be
okay.
pulling in the same direction?
Okay, and is that important?
So,
Wait, so you're asking them if we share the belief that our collective actions are positively impacting student outcomes? That's what you asked them.
No, we said,
It says right there. I
they,
believe everyone is
I believe everyone on my team is pulling in the same direction.
But isn't goal 100% of staff and students will share the belief that our collective actions positively impact student outcomes? So shouldn't we ask? Are our collective actions positively impacting student outcomes?
this was done before we set the goal.
Okay,
So this is the data that helped led to, creating those
Okay.
goals.
When
Okay,
we looked at that data, we thought that's us.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
as leadership.
Yeah.
We don't have the structures that allow for people to collaborate so that they feel
Yeah.
they're pulling in the same direction. Or we don't have the culture climate where people feel they're working well together,
Or
Yeah.
clarity.
or clarity.
My only point is that if you're, like, I wouldn't know what this question is asking, because what do you mean we're pulling in the same direction? Are we pulling in the same direction academically? Are we pulling in the same direction emotionally? Are we, so I think my only point is maybe it might be good to be specific with the question, or have 3 or 4.
Well, and, you know, just to kind of echo on that, I mean. My other glazing at these charts, but I mean, some stuff feels a little self-serving, like, you know, and if you look at it. If 62.9% agree that we're pulling on the same direction, then there's a whole bunch of people think others are, you know, undermining, you know, the educational effort, and that's a significant amount. Right, because it's neutral, which doesn't mean that they agree, right, and it's negative, so, I mean, it's challenging. But it's vague, and, I mean, I guess I'd like to delve, you know, more into. Why people believe others aren't pulling their weight, and if that's an impression, or if that's something, you know, backed up by coaching and observation. I mean, I think that more objective standard is really more helpful, right? Knowing that someone is living up to a certain standard, and checking out against that standard as opposed to a question, and maybe I'm wrong, but opposed to a question, do I think Ben's doing the right thing? You know, I mean, that's what that question feels like.
Understand this was presented to us last year.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah,
not
this
new. We had all sorts of opportunities to address this sort of question.
No, I understand, and I may or may not have said the same thing last time, but I'm looking at that, and, you know, I mean, as I look at these charts, I mean, in general, I just want to give with strong data that says, you know, this is what we're doing, this is, you know, in the area of growth, and I kind of want to cut to the chase a little bit more, so I know that you've got a presentation, but I look at that, and it does raise questions, I mean, I'm not criticizing you for the work that you're doing, I'm just saying that I'm looking for more, and that's it, but I don't like the question, I guess the bottom line.
Okay, well, why don't we I
Yeah.
think that you guys,
Yeah.
I think you've made it, I'm clear on what you guys
Yeah.
are both saying, but I would just say that my understanding of this information is that this is what is feeding. What fed, this is just background to the work you're doing now that you're talking to us about now.
Right.
And so that is just background, and
Yeah.
so
So my
what
point
informed
is,
there.
I think goal 2 is fine, I'm just saying that and I think it's measurable. Which is good, just
Yeah.
when you measure it, I would be
We would-
specific.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
We can let you guys keep going on. If you'd like.
but one more thing that would be interesting is, if you wanted to put it in, you don't have to, obviously, but there is evidence that what we're doing positively impacts it, that might be interesting. Question, statement.
You make your own plans.
So staff and students all pulling in the same direction. We also, you've seen this before, but you know, also with students. So we
Yeah.
wanted it staff and students pulling in the same direction, again, looking at that collective teacher advocacy. And then really, you know, how will we, address these goals? So we came up with a theory of action. And I believe you've seen this before too. And I'll read it. If teachers intentionally and collectively plan instruction around bringing students to mastery on a limited number of essential standards, and if there is collective examination of how students are reaching the standards, then teachers will build strong understanding of and ways to assess the essential standards. And if teachers communicate clear learning intentions, relevance, and success criteria, then students will have clarity and actively engage in the learning. And if students have an opportunity to reflect on their learning, then teachers can assess and adjust their practice to ensure mastery. And then 100% of our students will show proficiency or above in essential standards for literacy and math. So that is a theory of action that we keep going back to. And when we, part of our work with the 100-day plan is breaking these pieces out and working with teachers around these pieces. So creating CFAs, feedback loops, all of those types of things, and professional learning around this theory of action. So kind of the how-to is that whole professional learning community. As a district, we're a professional learning community, and we've created teacher teams in both buildings, along with guiding coalitions, and we've talked about that in the past as well. So each school has 3 critical teams. They have a guiding coalition, a school intervention team, and teacher teams within the buildings. At Parkway, there are grade level teams and content teams for like allied arts, different things like that. Over at Glen Hills, it's content teams that they have. So that they're working together, looking at those essential standards and doing learning cycles around those. That's kind of where we ended. So some of the work that we did, I just added this in the back of the slideshow. You can kind of see some of the work we did all summer long. So we had all the teachers stand up who participated in this work. It was a pretty cool activity. Actually, we had all the staff in the commons. And we asked all the teachers that participated in this work over last year and during the summer, kind of line up around the outside. And what we found is that the majority of teachers were on the outside because so many people participated in this work, that there was a small group of teachers in the middle who could kind of rotate around and learn from all the teachers who did a lot of this hard work and heavy lifting this summer. So I would like to shout out to all the staff who participated in this because we couldn't do it without them. So you can kind of see the Edge Climber, train the trainer, work around the adult learning framework, fast words training, RTI at work training, PLC at work training, behavior solutions book study, unit internalizations with CSUP, guiding coalition team members. We had mentor training and mentoring, curriculum writing throughout the summer in multiple content areas. So this was kind of the activity that I just talked about. And then we also asked them for feedback. So we had those 3 outcomes at the very beginning of this presentation, and we asked for feedback at the end. So I had them, Kelly and I had them do a consensogram. And so the first goal of our presentation was, will the staff will have a clear understanding of district goals. You can kind of see here on the scale. Yes, I can teach it to others. 20 staff members felt they were there. Yes, I do have that clear understanding. 69 staff members and 7 were somewhat after the presentation, the work we did. We will understand why these goals are important. 26 could teach it. 60 said they're good to go. 3 somewhat. And the last one, how are we going to do this work? Yes, I can teach it. 16, 28 were yes, I can. 43 were somewhat, and 3 not yet. So we'll be doing this again the next time that we present and getting additional feedback. And our goal is to move everyone all the way across. So we kind of keep dipping in on whether or not we're providing that clarity on the work that we're doing.
Is there any follow? I'm sorry. Is it okay to ask the question now? Is it okay? Is for like the somewhats and the 7 and the 3, and then I know the 43 is kind of a big number. Is there any like follow-up? Was this anonymous or what? Oh, yeah. I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice to maybe like be able to connect with those 3 or those 7 afterwards and be like, what was it you didn't get? And like, could we talk about it now, or like, how can I
Yeah.
help you get
And
it?
this was kind of the initial, so they knew like they're gonna get more of the how. at
Okay.
The next day, with
Okay.
the building level work that they did. So some of the feedback that Kelly will share, will kind of address a little bit of that.
Yeah.
And then again, we'll do this again. So we
Yeah.
wanna see some people
See
shifting,
progress,
right?
Yeah.
But we also, I don't wanna follow up with someone necessarily when they're doing that, they're comfortable doing it on their own.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, no, I was just curious. Anybody else have any feedback? Questions?
I do. So, and again, I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but looking at your patty meter. Direct instruction is listed as, being highly effective. Last 2 weeks ago, as it was stated that our curriculum or the curriculum we're looking into. Is based on inquiry.
Which,
The math curriculum.
okay,
And so my question is if this, I like these goals, I think they're good, I think they're measurable. It's good, but if we're not utilizing. A more effective strategy. That is direct instruction. How are we going to meet no, I know, but the curriculum that we currently use. And or are looking into is based on inquiry. How is that gonna help us reach this goal? And maybe it's I don't know, maybe it's not answerable right now, but like, anyway, that's what I'm wondering.
Well, I will have to look into that, but I would say that, our current curriculum, yes, Bridges and illustrative math are. We're not set on anything yet, we're still, don't know where Nicolay is gonna land. So we haven't made any decisions, we said we were gonna hold, we have a lot of new teachers in our middle school. That we're not gonna be piloting right now, so we were gonna hold. And hold with our Bridges too, we rolled that out 3 years ago, and staff is just getting into that.
And again, I'm not. Trying to be a jerk here or whatnot, but even if Nicolay does choose a curriculum. That is based on inquiry. Shouldn't we choose what is shown and proven to be the most effective? So. Cause I know
hear what you're
the
saying, but
temptation,
that was a
like,
whole team of math teachers that did all that work, right? And they did some research and we also had math consultants come in. And Ed Reports also supports those curriculums as well.
I mean,
So, but
research doesn't
I
support.
I hear what you're saying. I know. Thank you.
I'm gonna move along, cause we're or no, were there more questions? Sorry.
oh, no, sorry, I thought that was the end.
So Jenica shared the district launch, and I kind of feel like it would be helpful if I explained when we tried to design our August back to school PD. We thought what needs to be presented at the district level. And then we're gonna go to a building focus, and then we're gonna be student focus on student specific needs. And so that was part of our district launch. And then you'll see linked on here next are the Glen Hills and the Parkway launches that had to do with the guiding coalitions work and really establishing their schools as professional learning communities. This is a work in progress, so it does not surprise me that on the consensogram, it came out low in terms of clarity on how that work was going to look, because the guiding coalitions are leading that work sensitive to the needs and the structures of their specific buildings. And so that's a work in progress, and there are leaders in the buildings on those teams helping to build those structures within their buildings right now. What was really important is that we started that school year off with those essential standards. So we know what we're focusing on, which will help us know what we need to intervene on when we're talking about student specific needs. And that was really a really big part of our focus. So you can see how the Glen Hills launched their work with that and how Parkway launched theirs. I'm not going to do their presentations for you because I'm not on their guiding coalition. And sometimes we need to be reminded to slow down. And I think I was gently reminded, like, this is the guiding coalition's work, Kelly. You need to be patient because it's going.
Yeah.
So, it will be good, and the reason why it's important that the teachers are helping to design that is so that people feel like this is the system that is working for their building and the students they face every single day.
I would love to have someone from the guiding coalitions. From each school. come on,
And that's a great idea.
You know,
Maybe like mid-year or.
And that's a great idea. So then what we'd like to do is give you some feedbacks, or show you the feedback we received specific to, the August days. There we go. Okay. And this will be really fast, but, I know that's something we've talked about a lot about how do the teachers feel about the professional development? Is the professional development meeting their needs? Is it structured in a way where it's working for the whole system? And so we thought it would be really important to share with you some of that feedback. So Jenica described to you what our district-wide launch entailed. And then this was the feedback on the district-wide launch. So I found that the district launch provided clarity around the district goals and the why.
Blue and the green are 4 and 5, right?
The blue and the green are 4 and 5, and I actually did the math, and I
did, I can't remember what it is.
But 93% of the students rated that the clarity of district goals and the why a 4 or higher, and for us, that felt really good. And then 2% of our staff rated the clarity a 2 and below. When looking at the building launches and, thank you. Thank you, I can't read it apparently. And how the buildings, rated their experience with their August launches. You can see the feedback there, that 80.5% of students rated the building PLC clarity, a 4 and above. And 4.4% of staff rated it a 2 and below. And again, that doesn't surprise us because they're still working on creating those systems. The next question was about time. Rate how adequate your time was to prepare for the first day of instruction with students. 76.1 rated that as 4 and above. 13% rated 2 and below. I think we were hoping for better ratings, but also, anybody that's taught knows that you never really feel like you have enough time. You never feel like you're ready. And sometimes I feel like I'll even say it, like, I just want another month before school starts. And I think it's Anna that was like, nope, we need to just rip the Band-Aid off and let's go. Like, let's just do it. But that's good feedback for us. And then overall rating for new teacher week. 88.8% rated a 4 or higher. So in terms of the overall experience. So for us, that felt really good. And we were glad to even have some quantifiable, measurable experience information from our teaching staff. So just to share some of the themes, we organized these in a plus delta. So some of the positives is that we rated high in clarity of goals and the why behind our work. New teacher day comments were extremely positive. So our new teaching staff felt super appreciative of the onboarding experiences they had.
We did ask for comments throughout this whole survey as well too.
When we talked about district-wide, building-wide, student-specific, we carved out specific time to review IEPs, 504s, health plans for students. People were really appreciative of that dedicated time. People appreciated the staggered start, the days, and said that the staggered start with the PDs felt good. And like it wasn't just slam, you're here 5 days a week. We had a few days for new teachers, a few days for new staff. So those were positive. And then the boy or beginning of year building information, with anything related to nuts and bolts, people rated really highly. Like, it's just really nice to know where all the information is for teachers, where we can access the information we need to know for some of those nuts and bolts things. And then some of the deltas are really things we needed to learn from, or constructive feedback for us. Obviously, time to prepare for the school year was really our lowest ranked area. Our Ready, Set, Go meetings, we had some questions that was really good food for thought for us. In terms of with those Ready, Set, Goes, are we being equitable for, let's say, our working families? Because a lot of those Ready, Set, Go meetings are happening during the workday when people, when people are, thank you, when people are working. And I don't have engagement data or how many parents like actually walked in the doors, but I will say it felt pretty quiet. And so I wonder if Ready, Set, Go meetings are something we need to reinvent, to rethink about what those may or may not look like.
There's a virtual option for them
Yeah.
as well, so I wonder if people are engaging.
I heard that a lot,
Oh, okay.
yeah. Staff seeking visuals and photos of all the staff in the building, so people are more easily identifiable and easier for us to welcome new staff. And then making sure we have student-specific information sharing, rethink the logistics. So we had that scheduled with a slot, but some of the things that we kind of, I would say, was a misstep or a learning opportunity is, like, it was happening at the same time in both buildings. And we have people that travel between the buildings, so then they're like, I can't be in both buildings at one time to share the student, like this, that IEP information or the 504 information, so we need to kind of think about that. So that's something I think we can do better with next year also. Sorry, I went over that. Any questions about the feedback?
Do you have some brainstorming about how to increase the number of the, like, the percentage of participation?
With the Ready, Set, Goes?
No, with the survey response.
Oh, with the
I mean, your
survey
data set,
responses?
I mean, it's good data, right? Like, but it's only 46.
Yeah,
Out of how many employees?
it is only 46 out of how many employees, and I think that one of our buildings had a much lower response rate than the other. And yeah, we talked about that at the table, like, oh my gosh, we were expecting more feedback, so I'm not sure how we'll do that next year, but yeah.
How was it solicited? How was the feedback solicited?
How was it solicited? The building principals pushed it out.
I sent it out first.
Like an
and then
email.
And then we asked for another follow-up.
Oh,
So it was emailed to them multiple times. I think we need to, when we ask for feedback, I think we should say, we could offer, like, if we get 80% response rate or higher, we could.
yeah.
Or we could say your feedback will directly impact the way August days are
Yeah.
planned for next school year. Please, your voice is important. Use it.
Yeah, or do it the day of, like, when it's over,
Yeah.
you
Is it
could hand
exiting
out
it?
an exit
Yeah.
survey so that it'll be fresh and they could, you
Yeah.
know, if something was great or irking them, they could let it out.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even share the paraprofessional feedback because that was really low, the response rate. That we have to get that feedback before they actually walk out of the session.
Yeah.
So,
And it's always hard, right?
Yeah.
Participation is always hard.
Yeah.
What would Perry say? This is great, 40.
This is great.
This is
way better.
Way better than.
I do feel like we are asking for feedback a lot, so I do feel like our staff. There's so many surveys that we're putting in front of them. And right, like we walk this line where we
Right.
want them to feel like we have a voice. But at
Well,
the
then you-
same time, I kind of feel like they're rolling their eyes at us like, oh my gosh, already, can I just go back to the classroom and do my work? So,
Yeah, I think that's partly just a function of workplace dynamics, right?
Yeah.
You get asked to give feedback, and then my husband and I were just talking about this, like even at Marquette, professors get asked for feedback, and they're like, It's just a show. Who's
Well,
really
that's-
listening, right? So we have to build that culture that demonstrates the feedback matters.
Yeah, exactly.
And then if we can demonstrate that what you're telling us about your experience is shaping our leadership and our management and our decision making, then I think you start
Like-
spiraling up in participation because people find the effort to be meaningful.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you could send a thank you to everybody, like you could send a general thank you saying, because people filled this out. These are some of the things we're looking at for next year, including more time for, people be like, ooh.
Or you could motivate, like if we achieve a 95%. Did you already say that?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry. Woo, at least.
So-
No, and we probably
Hard.
could, at the beginning of every PD day, there'll be like a district meeting, almost every PD day, and this is some of the feedback.
We'll share this data back out.
Oh,
with
cool.
staff,
Yeah,
so
gotcha.
we'll do
They'll
that.
see it,
Okay.
they'll see it, we will make sure it's in front of their faces.
Randomized gift winning.
Ooh, that's
Totally.
good too.
I'm sure we have businesses that would provide like gift cards and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like for-
If you participate, you are in the drawing.
My only fear is then they have to self-identify, and then they're not gonna be honest on their survey.
Oh,
Yeah,
you don't think
that's
you
true.
could disaggregate the names for purposes of the drawing?
Not with our little Google forms. I mean, unless we buy.
Well-
the survey.
I think you guys have some good ideas. It
It's
sounds
always
like
got a rabbit hole.
you're on it, you're on it. Okay, we do, I think we can wrap it up, yes. Because we do have, sorry, tell me your name again.
Kevin Mullen.
Kevin Mullen from Baird is going to give us a presentation.
Yep, so
Um,
Kevin is coming to us from Baird. He has been with Baird, I don't know, how many years? Yep.
So I've been with Baird for 5 years and in the business of working with schools and other municipalities for 30+ years.
He's here to give us a finance 101, just with
Yeah.
regarding kids, or kind so he's a great expert.
Thanks, Lindsay. Yeah, as was mentioned, I'm Kevin Mullen and I represent the public finance area of Baird. And the team of people that I work with, we support schools in two ways. We have a school business solutions team, which supports schools with like their budget work, and it's kind of an ancillary arm to the school business office, and it provides input in terms of budgeting, forecasting, things of that nature. And then the role that I did, I assist school districts and other municipalities in terms of issuing debt if they have large capital projects. And as a result of that, have a background in expertise in helping school districts navigate the referendum process. So a couple of goals. It seems like you're kind of goal oriented. My goals for this evening are to talk to you about some of the tools that you have at your disposal as you start to analyze your facilities needs. And then also give you some context as you're starting to think about some of those facilities needs relative to your budget and relative to the process, just to kind of give you a little bit of depth of, knowledge, to make informed decisions and start to build your knowledge base for some of the decisions you might have in your future. My goal is not to talk about referendum or the presumption or assumption that that's the direction that you're going, but it is part of the conversation because it's one of the larger tools that school districts have. And we'll talk about that in a little more detail. Process that you're in right now is you're just kind of evaluating some of the needs, broad needs that the school district has. And for school districts like yourself, those needs kind of fall into like this food pyramid of need. And up at the top are, general maintenance type projects, smaller in nature. And as you kind of grow down from, smaller maintenance type needs to larger needs that end up impacting both academic changes to the district, or large projects that maybe have legacy impacts to your community. Think of like new schools or large athletic fields where people using those facilities are going to have the benefit over a long period of time. You may consider how you finance those projects. And can you all see? Well,
Oh, you're good.
okay. You may consider financing those in different ways, the top end of the pyramid than you would at the bottom end of the pyramid. So for maintenance needs, similar to like a home project, you may have flexibility within your budget to address those needs. You may have some savings accounts that you can draw on to access, some of the improvements. But as you roll down that pyramid, that the tool that you're going to use is probably different on the bottom than it is at the top. So, couple of the funding options that you have available to you. So you have operational funds. Think of that in terms of your budget. In your budget, you have an annual budget that you pass every October. The state mandates basically what you can raise in terms of your revenue limit. And that's the box that you have to play in for your operational needs. If you have flexibility in your annual budget, you might be able to carve out a piece for maintenance, ongoing maintenance for some of those improvements. Most school districts over time, that need, given, the rate of inflation compared to the flexibility that the state has allowed in that revenue limit, has kind of eroded most school districts' ability to use their annual budget to meet those needs, but that's one of those possibilities. There are a couple of trust funds that you have available. When I say trust funds, they're actually special capital project funds that you can fund out of your annual budget. Fund 41 or Fund 46, you have an established Fund 46, which is a savings account for capital projects. You established it in 2022. With Fund 46, what happens in 2022, you establish that plan. It's very flexible. The only limitation on that plan is that you've got to let it season for 5 years before you can spend money out of it. So I think you initially funded it with roughly $200,000. You can spend anything that goes into that fund after 2027 immediately afterwards. Slightly different is Fund 41. Fund 41 is a trust fund that gets funded at the beginning of the year. So you make the decision at the beginning of the year that you're going to set aside money to go into Fund 41, and it goes there out of your budget. Slightly more restrictive in terms of the types of uses you can use it for. But Fund 46 is a little bit different in that at the end of the year, if you have a surplus at the end of the year, you can shift your money to Fund 46. So I think Fund 46 is, all things being equal, probably more flexible, and I'm glad that you guys have that available to you. You could also consider using fund balance. So as your general fund balance grows, that is a year-over-year pool of money that is available to the district. Primarily, most school districts use it to kind of smooth out the differences between when your money goes out of the district throughout the year compared to when you receive revenues throughout the year. So school districts receive your revenue in kind of blocky sums. Some school districts get state aid. You don't. If you were to get state aid, most of that aid would come in 3 different pockets of time. But your tax receipts come in blocky pieces as well. So, your revenues don't necessarily, in terms of flow, match the timing of your expenses. And so fund balance helps you smooth that out. But school districts can use fund balance for capital projects if they so choose. The one warning I give is, most school districts, if they have fund balance, a strong fund balance, there's blood on the books in order to get it there. And it's really hard to build it back up once it's spent. So, most school districts, we would encourage them not to use it for ongoing operational needs, but to really have specific capital projects you need if you're going to draw on it. So that's the operational side. Borrowed funds for those larger projects, similar to a lot of the decisions you make around your home finances, you may want to borrow money to spread a large cost over time. And school finance in the state of Wisconsin kind of gives you 2 avenues. You have Fund 38 or Fund 39. Fund 38 means that borrowing is inside your revenue, meaning when you budget your dollars in the school year, if you borrow from Fund 38, it's going to come out of what you're using for operations. So rather than borrowing or using your operational expenses to pay for $1 million cost in 1 year, you could borrow over 10 years, for example, and have $100,000 a year payment in Fund 38, and that would come out of your budget. The difference is that you're making a decision to use that payment for capital projects, to make that payment for $100,000 inside your revenue limit at the expense of potentially other operational needs that you have. So it's inside the revenue. Because it's inside the revenue limit, you don't have to ask for voter approval. So good that you don't have to ask for voter approval. difficult because it doesn't really give you excess capacity or, operational expense. So it's a little bit limiting in that regard. There are two ways you can access Fund 38. One is you have $1 million worth of free authority, meaning that you as a board can approve $1 million to $1 million worth of capital projects and just move forward as long as those payments stayed in Fund 38. You can also go for a dollar amount that's larger than $1 million, and you just have to wait out a petition period. If you didn't get petitioned by the public, you could move forward and borrow for that larger dollar. Again, it's inside your revenue limit and constrained by, that operational expense. And then lastly, Fund 39 is probably the type of borrowing you're most familiar with, or at least that gets the most press. That's a referendum to exceed the revenue limit, to have those annual payments for the borrowing outside the revenue limit. So it's in addition to the revenue limit that the state allows for. So those are the tools available to you for funding those projects. So in the state of Wisconsin, if you want to exceed revenue limits, there are 3 ways that you can do that. 2 of them are for operational needs. So the state allows you to exceed your revenue limit, either on a recurring or a non-recurring basis. Recurring meaning that you could ask for example, $1 million annually forever, and it just becomes part of your operational base. Or non-recurring. Non-recurring means that you have that operational expense has a sunset. You determine as a board when you want that to sunset. And at the end of that period of time, the operational need goes away. So those 2 questions could be posed to the public to get additional resources outside of your operational revenue limit. The last one is debt, and obviously, we talked about that a little bit. If you want to borrow money and have those payments be outside the revenue limit, you would have to ask voters for it. So, what have we seen in terms of success throughout the state for those 3 types of referendum? For recurring referendum, there have been roughly 150 of those questions in the last 10 years, and the success rate has been in the low 70% range for those. You can see throughout the state where they've been successful and where they've not been successful. Much more popular has been the non-recurring referendum throughout the state. The non-recurring referendum, there have been over 450 of those questions asked over the last 10 years, and they've also been the most successful. Success rate over the last 10 years is close to 80% for that type of referendum. And then lastly would be the borrowing referendum. You can see throughout the state, close to 500 questions have been asked throughout the state for debt referendum. And you can see that that's been relatively successful as well, mid 70% support from the public throughout the last 10 years. Very interesting. I think if you were to overlay those together, there's a lot of activity, certainly in the southern part of the state, but north part of the state, but not quite as much activity. So, briefly, I just wanted to give you some context in terms of what your current budget looks like. So when you as a board sit down in October and start, well, you're probably discussing it already, but when you kind of finalize your budget's going to be made up of 3 components. The first is going to be your revenue limit. And that's, the state imposed dollar amount that you can raise for local taxes or using local resources for your levy. Most school districts throughout the state would take what their revenue limit is, dollar amount per student, less the amount of state aid they receive. You don't receive state aid, so your number is your revenue, and that's the amount that you can ask local taxpayers for operations. Add to that your community service fund, and that's for the different programming that you do that serve the community at large. The state allows you to add that to your revenue limit. For you, that's $546,000. And then you add any referendum debt to that amount. Those 3 pieces together equal your total tax levy. presently you don't have any referendum approved debt out there, so your total tax levy is $13.5 million. That $13.5 million gets spread across the full fair market value of your tax base. When I say fair market value, it's not assessed value, it's fair market value. So the state equalizes your value, so that every municipality that makes up your community pays a fair amount. Equalized value of the property in your community is $2,185 million. So that was last year. If you take 13 million divided by the $2.1 billion, you get a tax rate of $6.20. That means that for a home valued at $100,000, that resident would pay $620 a year to support your K district. Yes,
I have an ignorant question. Going back to your prior slide.
yes.
I've been through presentations on this many times and it's just a sieve here, but, so I apologize.
No problem.
Here, I thought we had an operational referendum. And so I'm wondering where that fits in
Sure.
this story.
It's in this revenue limit, so that.
Oh, so
operation-
that limit is the state limit plus our additional
Operation, yep.
operation, which is a non-debt.
correct.
So we're just taxing our community at that higher level based on that referendum.
Yes,
When
Yep.
you have a referendum pass, it'll factor into your.
Yep. not a similar.
I don't myself. That's non-debt referendum
Yes.
versus
Yes.
a debt referendum. Got it.
And
Thank
that
you.
referendum expired in 2025, right?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay, so it's just included
It's
in that.
in this, and in 2026, that would, assuming there's no additional referendum, that would go away. And that's a really good point.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, not at all. Glad you mentioned. So again, context, just to give you a sense as to where your tax rate has been, since 2018, you can see, based on last year's tax rate, you were at 620, and you've been pretty consistently, at that mid 6% dollar per thousand rate over the last 5-6 years. In terms of how you compare to some of your peers in the area, you can see Fox Point and Mapledale are slightly higher. And then we added Herman, Hartford, Holy Hill, and Heron for comparisons. And you're kind of in the middle relative to what their tax rate is on a percentage basis.
I'm just curious, I mean, so I'm looking at the chart, but we're like, I don't know, Ground Deer, there's Whitefish Bay.
Sure.
Smallwood.
Yep, and that's,
These are close to us.
Yeah, I'm curious.
yeah,
if
no,
there's
no,
so
so,
much-
these are K8 districts. And those are K12 districts, so if we took Nicolay and added that to yours, and we could add the, relatives from high school districts here. Yeah, you're a very unique situation, not very, but a unique situation that you're a K8. So in terms of peer districts, that's what we use.
Is there like a website where I can just go punch
Sure
the
is.
rates for different?
Yeah, and I can send that to you. There's a lot, it's called a longitudinal
Longitudinal data.
comparison. It's on the DPI website,
Okay.
and you can get, if you search longitudinal.
I'll send it to you, Carla.
So I'd be curious to know kind of, I'd love to kind of noodle.
Wisconsin DPI
Yeah, okay.
website, and I think they also have the different levies for those components on that website
Oh,
as
yeah,
well.
here you go.
So in terms of debt capacity, every school district has a limit statutorily in the state that they can borrow. The state limits K8 districts to 5% of your value. So if you took 5% of that $2.1 billion, that is your value. You would have the ability to borrow up to about $117 million if you wanted to. That's netted out of what you have outstanding presently, and I mentioned that you don't have any referendum debt outstanding. You do have a small amount of Fund 38 debt outstanding, roughly about $1 million of that as of 6/30/2023. So your debt capacity is roughly $115 million. That's likely going to go up as a result of an increase in equalized value in October.
So state law would only allow us to borrow by referendum up to the one except minus whatever's outstanding.
Correct.
Correct.
Where does equalized value come from? Is that like our property?
Yeah.
All
So
those things we own?
it's, the state provides that value.
Okay.
So they look at, kind of the, what's been happening in the market. And they make an estimate of what the fair market value of all the property in the community is. Yeah, they kind of do, you know, it's similar. And I think.
Zillow.
Yeah, we're in
It's,
a situation
it's
because we have Bay
becoming
Shore, so we're
closer.
very, like property rich, we're considered a property rich
Yes.
district because of having Bay Shore.
Yeah, so I think, Lindsay, that's a really good point, probably a good time to talk about this. So for the state aid formula it uses the dollar amount of value behind each student. And because you are considered property rich, you have a lot of value behind each of the students in your district. In fact, probably one of the highest levels in a lot of school districts in this area are in that same situation. You receive no aid.
So how does
State
that
aid.
happen if, like, Bay Shore, to my knowledge, doesn't really pay into our tax base
We
right
couldn't
now?
hear you up there.
Oh, through the TID?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
that's
it.
Yeah,
great.
so we're
We're
getting to
getting
that,
to
don't
that.
worry.
Okay.
No, so, but even without that, you're still considered a property rich community. So the tough news is that you don't get any state aid to offset your cost. The good news is that, we'll talk about this in a minute. In between being, you know, no state aid and being, you know, getting state aid, there is this place where for every increase in value, you start losing aid. And so it's at this transitional period of time. So you're kind of off of state aid. You don't have to worry about it anymore. It would be like a slow decrease in aid until you were zero. Yes.
We're weaned.
Yes.
So I'm sorry, I'm processing. The two
Yep.
point three billion is the equalized value of our community.
Correct. Yep.
Not that this, got it.
Of your district.
Of
district.
all property within the
Yep.
boundary of our
Absolutely.
district. Got
Correct.
it.
Yep. That's correct.
So that includes River Hill. then.
So I
It's
I
also-
believe we also, like, we get that new equalized value at the beginning of October.
That's what
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I sent it, we provided an estimate of what we think your value is going to grow by this year. I think it's right around 5%.
Yeah.
Wait, did you mention this? Why is it 2.3 billion versus 2.1 billion?
So, one includes TIF and one does not. So,
So like Toyota be included in this?
yes,
Okay,
I assume as long as they're not,
All the
the
dealerships.
as long as they're not the TIF, yes.
okay.
I just don't know exactly what the TIF are, I think they're outside of the TIF, so they would be.
And so when comparing mill rates, we do need to be a little bit careful because like you're showing Fox Point is at $9 to almost $10, but they also might have fewer houses. And
Yes.
and as a total, they're worth less because there's fewer. They may only have like 1.8 billion.
Yeah, well, yes, I think kind of the best way to compare that mill rate is like the average value of a home at Fox Point.
Yeah.
You know, take that value times that mill rate, and that's what the average homeowner at Fox Point is paying
Okay.
for their school taxes. And compare that to the average value of a home in a community here.
Yeah.
Times your tax rate. Those are the dollars that they're paying.
And they also
And
have
some,
an increase, they have just directly that they were down.
That's what I
Yeah.
understand.
but our cost might be down because it's offset by, because like, you know, home might be 200,000, but then the land that the car dealerships owns for millions.
Yeah.
So they kind of offset
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Okay, then.
So
Average,
the
okay.
complexion of your tax base
Yeah,
is really helpful. We're gonna talk about that in a minute. But you have a mix of some manufacturing property, you have a lot of commercial property.
and also
Yeah.
River Hills.
Yeah, and River Hills. So you've got a lot of high value properties that don't have a
Right,
lot
so
of
it's like
students.
It's like having a $200,000 home next to a $5 million home. I mean, that's
Yeah,
offsetting,
yeah. Or a $50 million home with no kids. It's a, you know,
Yeah.
manufacturing. Okay.
I'm moving to the next slide, Kevin.
Yes, sorry, we'll continue.
No.
Lindsay's
this is-
like,
we-
let's
yeah,
get it
like
up
this
and go.
slide,
Yeah.
that's
Yes,
Yes.
And then, you know, when we talk about, you know, kind of building out, what the potential impact is for example, a referendum. One of the questions that's going to come up is interest rates and where have interest rates been, and you know, it feels like interest rates have moved up to these exorbitantly high levels. So just to give you some context, context there. If you look back over the last 30 years, this is a trend line that shows you the 30-year average borrowing rate for a 20-year borrowing, which is the longest period of time you can borrow based on state statute for a school this year. So a 20-year borrowing for the highest rated credit category out there, just to give you a spot rate. And there's a basket of bonds that looks like this, like the S&P 500.
Is that where our credit rating is?
Your credit rating is not AAA. Credit rating is in the high A category. But this is just a kind of an index that we compare interest rates. So if you look back 30 years, yes, we're coming off of absolute low rates heading into 2022. And it's increased very dramatically and quickly since March of 2022 through today. But if you look at that average going back, we're still below 4%. We're probably, you know, for this basket of bonds in the mid to high 3% range. And it's about average as to where it's been over the last 30 years. Again, context, I'm not saying that that's good or bad. Yes, we have gotten these absolute lows, but we haven't gone to these crazy high levels.
Any
Prognostication.
prognosticating? How did you know that's the word I was
Sure.
gonna say?
So I don't, but like when you look at what's referred to as the yield curve, so you know, an investor generally in a normal situation, it's going to offer a lower interest rate to loan money for 1 year compared to if she were going to offer you a 20-year investment, they would usually offer a higher interest rate. In the current marketplace, the yield curve is flat, meaning that what they're offering for a 1-year loan is close to what they're offering for a 20-year loan, or in some cases inverted. The reason is they expect interest rates are going to be going down in the near future. So that's what the yield curve says, not what I say. But, and they could be wrong.
So a couple of questions about that. I mean, as you look at 20-year kind of, or if you go to look back, interest rates seem, I guess, say relatively stable.
Yeah.
Based on that. But what are you seeing in terms of the actual cost of the district within the current economy that we have? So we have a high inflation and a little bit, you know, some people have something that translates into possible issues, but
Yeah.
it's a higher period of inflation than in 20 years. And we've also not quite gone supply chain prices, you know, that been in this for a year, and there's
Which put a lot of pressure on
there's
prices. Yeah.
construction issues as well, right, with skilled labor and.
Yeah.
And so I guess.
Yeah, all those
That's
things.
one factor, and I understand that's something that you deal with, but what are you seeing in terms of actual costs? Do you have a slide that
In terms of construction costs.
yeah.
Yeah. So construction costs, obviously, during this period of time, there was a lot of money that was created and a lot of incentives that were created, and there were supply chain issues, lack of supply, and a lot of demand, which caused construction prices to increase very quickly. So 2 years ago, construction prices they kind of reset, and then they were increasing very quickly. And I'm not a construction guy, but I think it was, you know, around 8%. Recently, within the past year and a half, 2 years, they've slowed down. Rate of increase is still modestly high, like 3 to 4% is what I think it is right now. Yes, you know, that's a reality. So one of the reasons that the Fed has quickly increased the Fed funds rate during this period of time was so that interest rates would come up, so that it would slow and take pressure off of the inflation rate in the economy. You know, to some extent, there's some indication that that's happened, but you know, I don't think to the extent that they don't. So again, just information. I'm not prognosticating that, you know, things are going to continue to maintain stable.
Thank you for the exciting part.
Ooh,
Oh.
Ted.
So this is your growth in value over, you know, the past, since 2014, so the past 10 years. You can see you've had modest growth in value, 7.6% in 2020, and not much growth in 21, 2.2 in 22, and 7.8% in 23. The state of Wisconsin over the last 2 years, last year and this year, you don't have your value for this year, grew at over 13 to 14% throughout the state. So there was a ton of growth in value. I think the reason some of your growth has been muted relative to the rest of the state is because you have a lot of manufacturing property in your community, which did not grow at the rate that residential property grew. So I think it's a reflection of the fact that you have good balance in your community in terms of the type of property that's here. But we still have seen, pretty good growth in value year over year.
I think it says about the purple percent change line.
Yeah, I don't like that line at all.
Okay, the visual representation doesn't seem to match the percentages.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
So, well, it's year over year percentages, and the 0% line is here. I think it's kind of an awful representation
Okay.
personally. But if you were to look at the change year over year, 3.2. 3.2 to, it just represents the change.
There's the change from the through line, which is the zero.
Yes,
I
yes,
gotcha.
yes.
It's the
Thank you.
percent change from 2014, or it's the percent change from the previous year?
Previous year.
Okay.
Yeah, and so, yeah, I think, I got outvoted. I prefer not to have that purple line here because I don't think, what would be better would be a simple trend line that showed you the average growth rate over
Yes.
that period of time, which would probably be in the neighborhood of about.
Please,
know,
please let your
3.5%.
committee know that this group also agrees.
Yes. So I've got 7 votes, yes. Gone. So another, talk about being unique. So, we talked about how you're unique and you don't, share in the state aid formula. This is where the not sharing in the state aid formula helps you. You have 2 TIF districts, and we're going to talk about them a little bit more specifically in your community. So what is a TIF district? A TID district. It's an economic tool that's created by the municipality. In your case, both are in the city of Glendale. So the municipality, the school district, the county, and the technical college, they come to an agreement that they agree that this TID district, this tool, is a good economic development incentive to encourage economic change in the community. There are costs that go into that TID. So think about it in terms of like roads, sewer, gutter, whatever improvement or investment needs to be put into that property in order for that economic engine to start is the cost that goes into the TID. The way that the cost is paid is that the value, Lindsay, if you wouldn't mind, thank you. The way that cost is paid is, I've got a little life cycle down here. So that base value is where you start. So in year 1, let's say that property was worth $5 million before any of those improvements went in. Once those improvements went in, the expectation is that that's going to encourage economic growth. That economic growth is going to generate taxes. Those taxes stay with the TID, and they are allowed to grow over a period of time. So a TID in Wisconsin can last up to 27 years, 23 or 27 to by the type of TID that it is. It doesn't really matter for this conversation. But the tax increment, all the taxes paid by the school district, the city, the technical college, and the county that otherwise would go to stay with the TID district until the costs of that economic development are paid off. The reason you and others are willing to do that is because this didn't exist without putting that investment in there. And the argument is that it wouldn't have existed if you didn't invest in that catalyst.
That would affect it.
What's that?
That would affect it.
Yes, yeah, that's what I was doing.
So tell me what stays with the TID, like
Stays.
Bay Shore as an example.
Yep, that's a great example. Let's use Bay Shore as an example. So let's say Bay Shore, before any of those improvements happened, was worth $5 million. This $5 million, this blue space, what was there before the TID was created, stays with the school district, the county, and the municipality. But then as new value is created, that stays with the TID until the investment, all the cost to develop the TID is paid off. Once the cost is paid off or the TID reaches its maturity, the TID collapses and all this value is yours.
So it stays with the TID, I just don't know, I don't.
Stays
understand.
with the TID,
So
so.
they don't pay.
Not the
Does that
area.
mean they don't
No,
pay
so
taxes?
the area, yep. So use a one thing example. So let's assume Johnson Controls creates a TID district that is just Johnson Controls. And they're given, an incentive, or let's not call it incentive, they're given money to improve, to put in a rail spur that allows them to build another $100 million worth of stuff. Because this rail spur encourages it. So then the taxes on that additional 100 million are used to pay for the rail spur until the rail spur is paid off. So that's what I mean by stays with the TID. All those taxes stay in the TID district.
So Johnson Controls would build the rail spur.
Or the city would build the rail
So
spur.
if the city built the rail spur, then whatever taxes Johnson Control pays, some of which would typically come to us, instead goes to
Right.
whatever debt is associated with that.
Correct, exactly.
Got it.
Yep.
I would actually like to use a different example, the one on the north bayside.
Yeah.
Because that's more corollary to what we talked about, because economic development tool, he said, which, I agree with, basically, you're developing something for private use, using public tools, so, that's the equivalent of using, public land, well, maybe not about, example, but over in 100 North, they, I don't know if they, if not, I thought that they did, but they're putting a library there, right? So,
Yeah, they're not using, they couldn't use TIF dollars to do that.
but I mean, we could theoretically, we can sell off, or lease off part of our land to have an economic development, and then have an agreement with them to have part of that society for public space. I mean, I guess my point is that TIF doesn't really do a public school district any good unless we're putting something private in there. Somehow.
At the beginning, I think at some point, like. when
Yeah,
people do
And
that.
really, you couldn't use a TIF district to,
Renovate school,
you could not, no.
right?
No, that would be a public.
That's what I-
This is an economic development tool.
Right.
It's strictly meant to be a catalyst.
Just definitely, I get it.
It's like a partnership between the city and the private business, and the agreement is that the taxes are used to pay off the debt.
Yeah.
Utilize.
And it's actually an agreement between all the taxing jurisdictions to do it. The reason that you would want to do that, and that you've probably decided to do that in the past, is because without that economic development incentive, that investment, additional growth wouldn't occur. So whether it brings jobs or value or whatever, you felt it was a good idea to invest in that.
The urban legend I've been sold is that in TIDs or TIFs, the business benefit doesn't pay taxes,
Not true.
but that's not true.
Not
Instead
true
of
at all.
paying taxes, it's just not being distributed normally.
Well,
It's being distributed
for-
to the debt
for a period of time,
associated with that
right?
development.
Yeah, and the argument is that if you didn't do that, that investment might go somewhere else.
So this,
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
so in this example, they're paying taxes on 5 million for 20 years, but.
Well, so, yeah,
not-
so
No,
this bottom portion, if you were getting taxes before the TID was created on that 5 million, that stays with you. Yeah.
Per year, but they do not, so then year 21. They would start paying taxes based on that amount.
Yep.
They don't have to back pay the area under
No.
the line or the sum of the previous.
No.
So that money already got, that money did get paid.
It just goes back to them.
It goes back
Benefit
to
project.
pay for
That is.
whatever improvements were necessary.
So like Epic probably gave the school with their property tax some money, but then
No,
it was zero,
well, not during the TIF period,
nothing.
nothing.
Okay, and then, but then after year 10 or whatever it was, then they paid.
So Epics, they were kind of in a similar situation. The reason that I wanted to bring this up, and I think it's really important, and it's base building, and I'm glad you have all these questions because it's super important for you in terms of how you think about how it operates for you. So you have two really, in my opinion, large TIF districts. TID 7, which is 117 million in terms of increment value, meaning that's the purple stuff is 117 million new value increment. And then Bayshore at $96 million. Those TIDs have maximum lives one that goes out to 2030 and one that goes out to 2036. However, based on, you know, what is public, it looks like, at least, TID 7. Based on the math that is publicly out there, could terminate as early as 2028. TID 8 looks like at this point, it's still out to 2036. But what happens, so let's assume that you were a school district that received state aid. State aid is based on value per student. So this new $117 million comes to you as a community.
Oh, because it wouldn't be counted.
Well, it would be counted, but you would now have more value per student. And so you would lose like almost an identical amount of state aid in terms of that new value coming on.
And that would lower our mill rate.
Well, you don't receive
You
state
don't
aid.
have to worry about that.
So now, all this value as it comes on actually does lower your tax rate.
It lowers
Because
it.
it's not offset by a light decrease in state aid. So for you, these TID districts will be consequential when they retire. It'll be very consequential in terms of lowering your tax rate.
Is there a limit to how often a tip or TID can be renegotiated? Because like Bay Shore just, the reason it's at 2036 if it's TID 8 is because they renegotiated their
Yeah,
TID.
so yes, they can be extended if there are certain reasons and limits in terms of how they can be extended. It's possible to extend them. I don't remember if this was an overlay, which may reset the clock, but there are different tools that you can use to extend TIDs.
We just did a vote, with like Nicolay was there and the municipalities, this last spring to renew the, TID for Bay Shore. And because we're really the district, it wouldn't have gained anything for us to not renew it because we wouldn't have gotten any funding, it would have had minimal impact. So for us, we renewed it and as well as Nicolay did, everybody did because Bay Shore, we want that to succeed and grow as a business because then it will increase value.
No, I appreciate why it exists. I guess I'm just concerned, like, because at the point at which it expires, the tax benefit then flows outward into the entire
Correct.
community. And so if it continues to get renewed.
Oh, yes, no. So you would not be able to take this. So there's a limit. Well, when a TID's created, there's a plan that's put in place that talks about the amount and the type of expenditures that are going to occur. There's a time frame with which those expenditures can occur. So if you get outside of that time frame, you can't spend any more money in the TID. And the increment has to be used to pay back those expenditures, so it will expire. It's not like something that just can continually renew. We've
Okay.
got this piggy bank where, you know, they can just continue to
Yeah.
add improvements that wouldn't happen. Okay, yep.
One
That's a good
last
question.
basic question. Are those TID values included in the equalized value?
So they are for your determination of your
Debt.
debt limit. But for the tax rate, it's outside, and right now it's not included in your tax base because, you know, that portion of your tax base goes to pay the TID.
But in terms of the equalized value for determining our debt limit,
It's included.
it's included.
Yep. Wow. That's it's right there.
Ask me tomorrow.
Yes.
That's the test.
So this is a sample. And the sample piece doesn't really show up. It's pretty muted, hopefully. I just want you to know this is a sample. This is not you. As you proceed down your decision path, if you get to a point where you're looking at projects and you're looking at baskets of wheat, one of the things you're going to want to probably evaluate is relative cost to relative value. And so we will at some point be able to break all the pieces and component parts down to you in kind of a simpler form so that you can make some evaluations relative to projects. So we would use assumptions based on growth, tax rate, and aid, as well as I think we probably want to include the impact of at least one TID coming off in what that looks like. Look at what a 20-year tax impact or whatever term time frame you want to look at and put together some tax impact analyses so that you can compare what a basket of projects looks like with certain features to another basket of projects to make value judgments. So this is just a sample of how that can be clarified down, broken down into the impact for different home values annually. Similarly, I think it's helpful. Thanks. You can look at it over, a time period. What is your operational levy looks like over time? More importantly, referendum debt here shown in blue, you don't have any, but what it looks like moving forward. This would potentially show, the impact of a TID expiring and what that looks like in terms of planning. The reason that I show this is a community that was kind of forward thinking in terms of managing their tax rate and looking at their needs. So, just a community that looked at where those opportunities might exist for layering in additional facilities needs. And I think a plan like that for you would make a lot of sense. Just looking at what your needs are, not necessarily just 1 to 3 years out, maybe, looking out 5 years and where you want those needs and opportunity placeholders in your levy management strategy. So that's just something that could be developed over time.
Just if I could clarify, I just find something real quick. One right before here, one more.
Back one.
16, sorry, I'm looking at numbers.
There you go.
Okay, so I want to make sure I understand this. This is total tax summary though, it's not per year, is it? This is the total amount?
No, so great question. So here, this would be an annual impact. What would the annual impact to a tax bill be for this, a $14 million project? Not you, but like in this case, we boiled down a $14 million project to be an annual impact of 61 cents per thousand. Meaning a homeowner over $100,000 house would pay an additional $61 annually. $300,000 home pay an additional $183 annually.
For a $14 million bond issuance.
Yeah,
You'd be assuming like a 20-year, oh, there it is down at the bottom.
So if you have
Yeah,
a $300,000 home, $14 million reference cost. Oh, I see, $183
A year.
Annually,
a year.
Yes.
Yeah.
15, 25.
And this is not you, this is, these are some, this is, it's a sample on here, but it's just muted on.
This sample comes from.
Well, yeah, no, I understand, but just understanding that what I'm most thinking about when possibly face that $80 million upfront.
Yeah.
They're not, our side, but $38 million restaurant here, and this is hypothetical, plain numbers. Then 14 times about 6 or 5.5, so you're talking about 1,000 plus impact per year on taxes.
Don't know, hard to say. I will say for you, one thing that is going to be worth examining is right now, if we roll back to like slide 2, you had no referendum debt, right? So I think, no, I'm just kidding, but Fox Point Bayside, they had existing debt that they were wrapping around. And so if their debt was dropping off, and they had debt to wrap around. That difference between what you paid last year and what you're paying next year, because you already had some debt, that difference might not be that great because they were comparing to a year when they had debt. You're going to be comparing to zero debt.
Right.
So everything that you add is going to be new dollars, so it would be hard to make an assumption based on what Fox Point had, because, you don't know what they're already paying for debt service. What we know is you don't have any debt service right now.
Which has been a point of pride in the past in this district.
Well, but also there's a reason we didn't have it because we didn't need to acquire it. So,
So again, the goal is just to give you some context, and also describe the tools available to you. And I'm glad you had a lot of questions because that's really what we were hoping would happen. And I know it's going to be a building process. You're going to think about this. You're going to have more questions. Please feel free to funnel those to us through Lindsay, and we're happy to respond and continue to build that base of knowledge as you're going through this.
This is the most new stuff I've learned in like 6 months.
I was gonna, yes, I was actually
Very
So helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're okay.
I just
Thank
want
you. I got
Well,
some
help.
this time.
Split it aside. Referenda, or any kind of referendum.
Yeah.
Right now, we can only do it 2 times a year.
Yeah.
During regularly scheduled spring and fall elections, so for example, 2024 should be next year's presidential year. 2024, right? 2025, I don't know if we have a spring or fall election, probably not a fall election.
You don't, that's really astute, no.
So, and we can only do it twice in a year,
Yeah.
so if we didn't make it the first time,
You can only have one opportunity. Yeah, so, that's a really good point, in Wisconsin, because we're limited, to, the spring and fall elections. In odd numbered years, we only have a spring election, so you only have one opportunity. In even numbered years, we have a spring and a fall opportunity. They're actually four, but they're not separated enough for that to matter. So it's really two opportunities.
I think the other thing is like when we're talking about the referendum, we have currently an operating one.
Yeah,
And
so
that's one of the things we want
that's
to
where it's
talk about is that do we go, if we decide that the referendum, capital referendum is the way we want to go, do we do that in November alongside an operational in November, or do you just do a capital and then operational in spring of?
Yes,
So
that's,
those-
that's exactly, that's a super important point. Because, my suspicion is that, that non-recurring referendum is pretty essential to maintaining the educational, goals that you have. And if that goes away, that would be a priority, right? So you'd want to make sure that you were considering that around any capital. you might have.
and by the way, I'm not advocating this, but just for a point of reference, our, last referendum, I think expired in 2020. And we approved the current referendum, 2019, for some of these reasons. But the problem was, we had something come off our taxes, we had a dip, and then everyone was hit in 2020 because all of a sudden they're like, where the heck did this come from? And it was over a year since we had approved the new referendum. So there's a bit of a surprise there, in terms of that impact.
That's why this is one of the big things, our goal is to keep the rate
Yeah.
steady. Like, we don't wanna have those green dips, so that's why like looking at things like the TID and
Yeah.
like, you know.
And
long-term, like-
it's really challenging. I don't want, I'm like, oh, your job's so hard, it's not. But it's really challenging in terms of like kind of timing, the biennial budget. Every other year, the legislature changes the rules a little bit. And when you're looking at an operational referendum, it's hard to know. So, how closely to a biennial budget do you go to operational referendum without knowing the rules? But then also, if you're gonna go in November and it's not successful, you don't have an opportunity to adjust your budget if it's not successful.
Right.
That's the hard part.
So let me ask you, and I'm sorry, but it's another question I have, which is, it's a great slide about the success rates for our friends.
Yeah.
And by the way, I think our community supports smart spending, and we have a pretty good track record going short.
Yes.
But I mean, still, they're about 65 or 70 to, the 30, 35, whatever they are, I think, on average. If you have, let me ask you, you have data about success rates of spring versus fall.
Yeah. So we do, Lindsay and I, and talking about this, we felt that was gonna be too much information in terms of building.
Down the
So
rabbit hole.
that's kind of the next,
Yeah.
the next opportunity would be to talk about those things. If you decide that that's a direction you wanna go, or you want to really pursue. Yeah, we have all that information. We just felt like it was maybe a bridge too far for that. Tonight. But yeah, success rates around presidential elections, in spite of what's happening on the ballot, are generally the most successful times to go. Because you get lots of people.
You get budget planning, then you still do with the other ones.
Yeah, so November, you can still accommodate your budget with that November, the state has now accommodated that. Before, you had to pass your budget in October. If you had a November referendum, it wouldn't be.
Yeah.
You can now certify two levies, one with and one without. You can call the municipalities the day after the election before they send out their tax bills. So,
I think this is a great conversation
Yes.
for the next one.
Yes,
The other part-
I'm like, I wanna,
Sorry.
and we are far over the
I-
allotted time that we've planned. And I wanna thank you so much for your time and be mindful of everyone else's time.
Thanks, sorry.
I think we will have follow-up questions and hopefully follow-up presentations, but I would just like to close this. It's okay. Apologies, I
yeah,
just.
no, I get it, uncle.
But honestly, thank you so much.
No, and thanks for your patience, thanks for your attention,
thank you.
appreciate it.
Pleasure.
And thank you guys for.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Sure.
all in favor, voice vote aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I wasn't trying to. Yeah.
No, not at all. Interesting.